We're good. Robert, what do you go by, dude? I call
I,
you Robert, but do you ever go by Rob?
very few people call me Rob. My mom, since I was a kid, would correct people. His name is Robert. So I go by what people I like. When if someone calls me something, I'm like, hey, that's what that person calls me. But not around my mom. You got to call me Robert if my mom's around. So.
I love it. Well, everyone, welcome to the show. We've got Robert Sullivan with RedX. He runs RedX, and we're going to be talking about goal setting and effective goal setting. And we've got some numbers for you. I shouldn't say we because they're all Roberts, but I'm going to include myself into this because I'm going to give you some strategies along the way. And Robert, what have you guys done last year that's really putting the effectiveness into what you're doing this year? Because I think it takes a lot of planning. It doesn't just happen last week.
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff I want to share with you. And because we've done a ton of work to get to the root of these numbers to really help out all agents. I run the marketing department here at RedX, and so we've been surveying our customers. We've been talking to prospecting agents that aren't our customers, and we've been doing data studies. Super exciting, I know, to do a data study, right? But that's why we're doing it, so you don't have to. And so yeah, we've been putting in the work really for a little bit over a year to get at the heart of some of these numbers to gear up for 2022. The other thing that we do is along with so many other people, keeping our eye out on the market. And we know this low inventory market is here to stay for a little while longer, right? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that and what that means for our own habits and goals. Want to get into that. And hey, I just want to say I'm pumped to be here, Tristan, for two reasons. One, I'm just barely getting over COVID, so I'm still at home and in quarantine. But tomorrow quarantine ends, I'll leave the house, and I'm well enough to be on. And nice. Two, because I'm going to bring the numbers. But yeah, I'm excited to hear your take, Tristan, because you've been talking to so many people, you know what's going on, and we can really turn some of these numbers into strategies for 2022. So I'm excited about all that.
Well, let's do it. I don't think it's too late to talk strategy. And I think the biggest challenge we have in the real estate world, when it comes to creating the goals or focusing on the priorities or anything along those lines, is the fact that a lot of it has to do with mindset. And you hear this all the time, right? The most amazing books on business start with mindset too, right? And even the highest performing athletes or just highest performing person in their vertical, whatever that is, right? It all has to do with mindset. And so I want to just talk a little bit about that, because if you're not going to believe in yourself and you're going to leave that for somebody else, then you're already starting off on the wrong foot. So a couple of things that I really want to make sure that you focus on right now. And that's when you're looking at the wholeness of your business, that also includes taking care of yourself, right? That also includes taking care of those things that are important to you. And that typically has to do with family, right? Whatever your family looks like, or whatever you consider to be part of your family. And of course, there's the business aspect to this. So when you're setting these goals, make sure that you have a more of a wholeness approach to life, saying, well, let me include everything along the lines. Because what I notice, Robert, and you notice this too, is that when we think of goals and when agents think of goals, it goes directly to the number. I'm going to make 100. That's my goal. I'm going to make $100,000, right? That's it. Or $1 million or 500,000, whatever it is. And then we never address everything else. Or if we do, it's very short-sighted. It just, look at the gyms right now, right? And everybody's there. And the same thing with everything else. The intention is there, but the intention eventually dies out if there's no routine involved.
Perfectly said. So a couple of super important things to unpack there. when you start with mindset, you have a why behind those numbers and why you're going to make phone calls, why you're going to go to listing appointments, and why you want to make whatever that end goal is, whatever that dollar amount it is. Maybe you're just trying to get a 5,000-10,000 extra on what you got last year, or maybe you're trying to get in a whole new league in your business and really up your game. But you got to start with a why, and is that family time? Is that vacation time? Is that whatever it is? Exactly like you said, start with mindset. And then once you know why you're doing it, then you're not staring at those numbers all the time and maybe even getting a little disgruntled as it's not working right away. And that's where habit comes in, where routine comes in. And again, before we even get in the numbers, I think some mindset things that could be really playing with people's minds right now are that, like we said, low inventory market, it's not going away right away. And so you might be discouraged about finding homes for buyers, or you might be in a habit that you're like, hey, if I get a listing, it's going to sell and I'm going to make more money than I've ever made because my 3% now is a lot higher than it used to be.
Oh, yeah.
And so either side of that, either the discouragement on what the market outlook is, or getting a little lazy because it's easier, or you can make more money on just one transaction. And so you step away from some known habits and some dangers in there. One, if you let the idea that, hey, cold calling is dying and the market is difficult, and so you do less of that, or hey, I'm making more money per transaction, so I probably don't need to chase as many transactions. That might work today, but what does that mean 6 months from now when your CRM's empty because you sold all the houses of all the contacts of every friend and neighbor you already had in there? What about a year from now when the market does change, when interest rates go up and first-time home buyers enter the market at a higher rate and investors are down? I mean, what are you going to do a year, 18 months from now? You want a full CRM. You want that database packed, and you do that by doing habits today so that you are reaching your 2022 goals and you're set up for 2023 and 2024. And so you got to start with those habits, mindset, habits and routine, and then back into the numbers. So, but get those habits. So, I mentioned, I think I've seen prospecting or cold calling get declared dead, I don't know, every other month for the last 5 years. Hey, prospecting's dead. Sure, maybe for that person. And if someone says that, I'm like, good, that guy's not making phone calls. Now it's easier for me to hop on and go through my list, right?
I think so.
So yeah, start with your mindset, your why, where you want to go, and then let's back into some numbers. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add there on habits or routine before we.
No, I think that's where we gravitate to, right? And I think the reason I start with mindset too is because when you present something like RedX to me, right, and you have the numbers that you're about to show, and I say, well, yeah, well, that's just for you, or that won't work for me because my mindset isn't there, right? I did a video and I asked Jake to post it. So it's a YouTube video. I've got a few thousand views on it. It's 10 ways to get 10 ways to get listings in 30 days or less. And I don't know why half of them have to do with RedX, but they do. Okay. And it just shows that you actually have to put action into it. And Robert, it's the same in your market as it is in mine, but there's stuff selling. There's stuff getting listed. Why not you, right? Why aren't you the one? And that's where the mindset shift comes, because if it's happening, I want a piece of it because I know I can do it, right?
That's right. And low inventory is a bit of a misnomer, right? Because we're actually moving more homes than ever before. So the inventory exists. It's just that the demand is so high is what causes then why we talk about low inventory. But you're right. Houses are being listed and sold, and someone has to do it, and it might as well be you. And I think the reason why in your YouTube video that RedX and the leads and tools that we provide can help get you listings so quickly are because of some of the numbers I'm going to share. So I want to back up some of these numbers so that you know where they're coming from. So we've been surveying the survey that'll take most of my information from. It was a 1,063 prospecting real estate agents that provided us information on how often they're connecting with people on the leads list, and how many of those connections are resulting in appointments, and how many of those appointments into listings, and listings into closings. So this is real data from real estate agents. I'm going to be sharing some averages, which means you might be new or in a different market and you say mine's a little lower, or when it comes to closing your listing appointment, you might be like, I'm way better than that. I close like, if I get in the home, I'm closing, right? And good for you. I bet, Tristan, when you get in the home, they want you to list their house, and so you'd say, I'm 100%, man. I'm not on this 40 to 50% range.
I wish. I still suck now here and there, so it's okay.
But so we'll walk through those. The other thing, when I get down to specific like connection rates, I'm going to use some real data. At RedX, we asked a company to do a data study for us and with us, and we made over 34,000 phone calls using all sorts of different products, other lead sources, other data providers. And all we did, I actually did a couple hundred phone calls myself, was we'd hop on, we'd make the connection, we'd say, we're looking for this property owner. Is this the person or not? And so we learned a few things. We learned all about connection rates. So how many dials actually connected to someone, and how many connections actually got to the property owner, right? Some really important things when you're making dials. So these numbers I'm sharing aren't coming from nowhere. We've spent a lot of time finding them out, and really, so we can share something important. So what are some of these numbers? Well, I know I might have my goals, which are, I want to make X amount of dollars this year, or I want to have X amount of closings this year, whatever that might be. You can back into that if you start to take some of these averages, averaged from large pools of data. So we know on average from all data sources that connection rates are getting lower. And so a decent connection rate right now that you get on average from most providers is 1 in 15 calls.
Oh, so wow, dude.
1 in 15 dials, right?
So wait, 1 in 15 dials, we connect with somebody. That's the average. Okay. That's
the average. So that's when we were using all sorts of different data providers. RedX is actually better than that. And so I'm excited to talk about some updates we just made when we get there. And so they say, so these prospecting agents, they're telling us, once I connect with somebody, every 10 contacts I make with a property owner, I can set 1 listing appointment on average.
Whoa.
And so that sounds pretty good, right? And you might say, okay, my experience has been more like 1 in 15 or 1 in 20, or no, if I get someone on the phone, I'm really good at getting an appointment. But on average, they're saying 10 contacts can get me a listing appointment.
Robert, what type of contacts are those? Is it circle prospecting, expired for sale owner? What are they, or general?
Good question. This is at least one of 5 lead types. So It includes GeoLeads, expireds, FSBO, FRBO, and pre-foreclosure. So at least one of those, but in many cases, multiples, right? And they did tell us that, hey, on average, 2 out of 10 of their appointments that they set do cancel. So we're just going to work that into the numbers, right? That they're like, hey, not every appointment I set, they actually, they might just set something to get me off the phone or whatever. And then the people that we surveyed, the agents that we surveyed, they have just under a 50% close rate. So if they're getting in the door with a listing appointment, then about 50% of the time they're listing. And then I have some competing data, because if you go kind of before, as we're just getting into all of the low inventory stuff, it was closer to a 73% listings sold. Of course, now we're at way above 90%. So yeah, right now everyone's saying, if I can get it listed, I will get it sold, right? Like,
it's a crazy market.
Yeah. So there's a little differences. If we maintain the low inventory, which most people are saying we will for 2022, then a listing equals a closing. When we're not in this kind of environment, it's more down to 3/4 or a little lower than that. So what does that mean? Oh, well, the other thing we have to add to this, are you having fun yet, Tristan? Do you want
Dude,
more numbers?
I'm taking notes here. So
Old school, I love it. Tristan and I are in our alternate offices, and we've got old school pen and paper to do numbers. We've got new math in our head.
Dude, I'm taking notes because I want to be able to use this, because it's not public data, right? It's like, you guys, this is your research.
That's right.
So I can go and use this for any presentations that we do, or even with sellers or buyers, depending on where you're going. So this is why I'm taking notes on those stats.
Yeah. And they are great stats. And I'd also encourage people, when you're setting your goals, be realistic about where you're at. So like I said, I'm sharing averages, and these are prospecting agents, and maybe you're new and you don't have your scripts down, and your closing rate's not as high, and that's okay, because everybody starts somewhere and you got to work up to this. But what the numbers do tell us is that it does work, and prospecting isn't dead. And that should give you encouragement to continue to work up to these averages, right? So so here's just some numbers, some additional numbers, right? If I wanted to get one listing, then I need 3 listing appointments, we'll say.
Okay.
That's less than the 50%, but so we need 3 listing appointments. According to those numbers, if I want 3 listing appointments, I need to make 30 contacts. So 30 people when I connect with the homeowner, the property owner, and I have an opportunity to ask for a listing appointment, right? 30 contacts like that.
Did you say 30 or 38?
30, sorry, 30. Yep, we'll do 30. And so if I'm a connection rate of 1 in 15, then I need to make about 450 dials. Now, see, now we're getting, the numbers sound kind of big. And so this is where you start, just start splitting that up. So per listing, if I need to make 450 dials, how many dials and contacts do I want to work out each day? And
how long does it take to dial one person on a single dialer? That's a dialer.
Yeah.
And then are you also doing triple dialer, right?
Yeah. So if you're comfortable with it, and obviously if your local regulations allow for it, a triple line dialer is going to, it just more than doubles your efficiency in getting a hold of people, right? Because you're going through these numbers faster. And in a single line dialer, everyone's a little bit different. They have automatic voicemails if they want to leave a voicemail, what their initial scripts are. But that's where on an individual basis, you can say, and it might even be like, hey, I can only handle doing dials for 1 hour, and then I need to go take a break for the day, right?
Yeah.
So everyone needs to work that out. But if you know that it's going to take you 450 dials to get those 30 contacts, well, then maybe that's 3 days of work for you. I don't know. That depends totally individually on the agent, but then you can break that up. And another thing for mindset that you can do is, someone's going to yell at you. I don't know if you've ever prospected before, raise your hand. And did someone yell at you? Did you make someone uncomfortable? Right? That's going to happen.
I'm uncomfortable sometimes, but I still do it. So
that's right. And that happens throughout the day, and it can be real discouraging. And even if you start with a good mindset, you might be halfway through these dials, and that can kind of get you down. But if you can look at these, one, that you're talking to people and you have a service to provide that's valuable, and 2, every no is still worth money to you, because it's math now. It's a numbers game. And so I know that 450 dials is going to get me to the contacts that will get me the listing appointments, that will get me a listing that's worth somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 in today's market. And so now I can say, hey, each phone call, that's $40. They might have yelled at me, but I just made myself $40 because I'm one phone call closer to that person that needs my service and wants it today. And you can back into these. Now you take those, that's on one listing. And once you've figured out those numbers for yourself, I've shared averages. Once you've figured those out for yourself, then you figure out how much you can do either each day or each week, and you plan your year out. So if you want to have 10 listings this year, that's going to get you, depending on your market, between 150 all the way to 250,000 in your market. I mean, some markets even higher than that. Then you just times all those numbers by 10. I need 10 listings, so I need 30 to 35 appointments. So I need 300 to 350 contacts. I need 4,500 dials this year. And you can start breaking those kinds of things down. Again, put your own numbers in there, start with the averages, and then decide where you're at. And then you can set real goals, because your goal might be, I want to make 150,000 this year. Well, you're not going to do that tomorrow. But what you can do tomorrow is make 80 dials and make some contacts.
How long does $80 typically take for, let's say, somebody who does this pretty often?
Yeah. If you're using a triple line dialer, I'm trying to remember the last time I was doing some live prospecting with one of our guys, and in a half hour he actually made it through 120 dials, I want to say. And I was on a triple line dialer.
Triple dial. Okay, that's about right. Because I was going to say, we use the single dialer, and we do about 40 in an hour.
Yeah.
And that's including those people that are very short when they talk, the longer ones, and then the ones that we just don't reach.
Yeah.
So that's about right. Well, we do too. Interesting. And then, so now let's just use that as an average. If we're hitting up 40 in an hour, it's going to take us 11 hours to get to one listing. And now we're like, okay, all right, now this is looking interesting. I need to allot this much time in a week to be able to get this many listings. And if it's not happening, that means that I need to work on my skills. What part of the call am I not doing great at, right?
And when you have an annual goal, it's awesome, because you get times to pause and get better. And so yeah, in January, we're just starting out. We're in it, let's say, but the other thing is that that. So maybe you're 5 hours in and you're like, man, I thought prospecting was going to be for me. I've gotten a ton of no's. I don't have an appointment yet. And I don't know if I can do this. So it's the same as the guy at the gym this week that's saying, I don't know if I can do this all year long, right? But you do know, if you went to the gym all year, that you would get the result that you want. But maybe getting up and going every day is going to be really hard, or you're not seeing the results week 2 of January yet. But it's the same thing. We know the math plays out. The numbers play out, that if you stick to it, you will get the listings. And I wanted to add one more thing, Tristan, about, because we've been talking listings and closings, which absolutely happen when you're making these phone calls. But another benefit to prospecting that we don't talk enough about is the business it provides you in the future. So an expired is a warm to hot lead. That's someone that says, hey, I want to sell my house, and it's not going, and it hasn't happened yet, right? And so we know that person wants to sell their house, and so we're excited. And if we get that, then we know we're selling their house in the next month to 2 months in this kind of market, right?
Yep.
And that is a great way to prospect. We know we have fewer expireds. FSBOs are on the rise, though, with everyone thinking they can sell their house. And so you're calling those, they're really hot. But between geo leads and even people that pick up that aren't ready to listen to you yet, if you keep them in your database, if you've talked to them and you put them in your follow-up, whatever that might be, whether it's the one email a week, whether you shoot them a text, whether you just say, hey, can I email you next month? However it is that you follow up. If you not only call your listing appointment a success, but everyone you add to your database, then your prospecting time is going to compound exponentially on the benefits that it brings you. Because yes, you will eventually get to that one listing after hours of prospecting. You'll get to that listing. But what you'll also do is fill up that database so that 6 months, a year, 18 months, 2 years from now, your email list is growing and growing and growing, to where while you're calling outbound, someone else is getting your email and they're going to call you inbound. and say, hey, I know I wasn't ready 6 months ago, but I'd love to talk to you right now. That'll
Well, dude,
happen as database grows.
here's why that happens. I'll tell you from personal experience. When I was calling these people, I didn't know what to do with them. If they would give me their information, like, where do I put them? It wasn't until I found a solution, which is a newsletter, right? Because yeah, let's say I put them in my database, Robert, what the hell do I do with them? It's like, how often do I call them? And am I going to really call them if I'm not already calling everybody else? Because I'm not that great at it anyway, right? So the solution for us was simple. It was a newsletter. We include them, and they're being taken care of. And it's not just your average newsletter, because you and I get these crappy newsletters from all over. And I think we forget that. There was a quote yesterday from my friend, Steve Pacinelli, Bomb?
Oh yeah, Bomb. Yeah.
Okay. Steve, he said, hold on, because this was a good one. This was a good one. I wanted to see where the hell I put it, because I was like, dude, that was so good. You did such a good job on that quote. I don't remember it, but he mentioned about how we're always going for the revenue. And we think that if we're pushing for the revenue, that's going to equate success. But what really equates the revenue is the value we give, right? And that goes back to creating the substance, right? What is it? The newsletter. Because now, if you know you're sending something good, Robert, the conversation is going to sound completely different. I'm going to feel super confident about talking to you, like, I've got this great newsletter, right? Because I know it's awesome. And now I'll just be more convincing because I'm telling the truth. I think a lot of agents have a hard time selling themselves because they don't believe in themselves, because they know that half the stuff they're putting out is kind of garbage.
Yeah.
So
now, yeah, and I'll tell you, we've got so many people listening that are like, I agree, but how do I know if my stuff is good or garbage, right? And so I think that, but you do know, you can go and look at the newsletters you are getting, and you can say that is a good newsletter and valuable information, and this one isn't. Or as you build your database, ask them what they want. Do you want market updates? I can let you know when there's more opportunity for buyers in this market. Right now is not the time. So what if I just put you on my newsletter, and I'll update you every month where we're at on that. And when there's more opportunity for buyers, I'll let you know. And but get that feedback from your database, which you can't do unless you have a database. And you can't get a database unless you build it through hard work like prospecting. I love it, Tristan. And I love it when right here in Lab Coats, I see it all the time. And sometimes I comment, sometimes I don't, but everyone says, where do you get your business from? And they say, referrals. I only get business from referrals. And here's a new agent, and they say, awesome, I've never sold a house before. So where's my repeat and referral business going to come from? I only have one mom and one dad. I only have two grandmas. And so to build my database, where else do I go? Okay, put your friends in, and you start to grow that. How do you grow a database? You make phone calls.
That's it, dude.
You get on the phone and you do the hard work, and that grows and grows and grows, and you keep in contact with them with a quality newsletter, with good information, with real value, even service opportunities that you can do. Hey, here's some information I'm going to pass along, even though you're not selling your house yet or haven't wanted to talk. Provide value, and that keeps your database full. Yeah.
Here's on the value part, because I found Steve Pacinelli's quote. It's just one sentence. He said, recurring value equals recurring revenue. And I'm like, dude, that's so good. I want to write it down. So I wrote it down.
I'm write it down too.
And I thought that was so impactful. Recurring value equals recurring revenue, but we don't always remember. Like, we know it, and then for some reason we're still making the same crappy ass calls. It's like the same crap all the time, and the same email. Oh, you know what? That agent did such a great job with that email, and then, right? So it gets super tough out there. I wrote that out, so I'm gonna put that in front of my face for a while.
Yeah. So I've I'm not don't have as much real estate as everyone else. I've sold one home, rented a home, and bought a home, and refinanced for that matter. So 4 transactions in the last couple of years. And how many real estate agents do you think are in my inbox, dropping by, making a phone call, or doing anything for me right now?
Dude,
There's zero. There's zero. This is the hottest market. The value of my house has doubled since I bought it. And not one person in any of those 4 or 5 transactions has reached back out to say, hey, how's that equity in your house doing?
dude, you know what that reminds me of? That reminds me to ask you, have you thought about selling your home anytime soon?
There you go. See,
I'm just
now
asking.
I have one. Now I have one.
I don't cover your area, but I know somebody that does.
I do need it, Tristan, because I'm broadcasting from my son's bedroom. So yes, so yeah, send someone over so I can get myself a home office.
I'll make sure it's a RedX customer. Okay.
That's good. That's good. Hey, before we're all done, I know we're running out of time or might need to take some questions here. This is what I wanted to add about our connection rates. So besides doing all of this research, just to let you know, your audience know, and add value to real estate agents everywhere, we also wanted to improve our products. And so when we were making these 34,000 phone calls, one of the main things we were doing is we were saying, what's everyone else doing? So we were using other people's software, other people, different data sources to help us figure out, and how do we make ours better? So our standard expired product, we just went live with it in December. Our customers know, but outside our customers, they don't really know. So it's kind of a new announcement for everybody, but it's a 1 in 10 connection rate right now. We've been able to find the best data sources and put it in our proprietary algorithms and the processes that we use to deliver value to our customers. So with our expired product, you're getting a 1 in 10 connection rate. We have our premium data product that we call Onyx, and that is at a connection rate of 1 in 6. So if you've already set your goals and you're thinking about this on the overall averages of 1 in 15, but expireds are part of what you do, and they still exist. I know everyone says, "Oh, there's still expireds out there." I had 23 the other day show up in my Vortex account. If you want the best data to make the fewest phone calls to get a hold of the property owners, we just did that. We turned it on live, and our expireds and our premium data Onyx, which they're getting you 1 in 10 or 1 in 6 connection right now.
1 in 6 or 1 in 10. Wow, man. So I have a question. Why did you guys choose 34,000? Did that just happen by chance, or was that the goal?
I don't know. I'd have to go ask our data team. Like, why didn't we go to 50,000? Right? No, I think that it was, we had a certain amount from each data provider and different service that we were using. So we took, getting a little technical, but we had raw data, we had competitor data, we had as much data as we could, and we just made these phone calls, right? We're just dialing, and then took all that data to help update our own processes so that we could deliver the very best. So, you've got some data providers out there that they give you quantity. So they're like, here's everything that you could possibly need. There's 10 phone numbers per property. Maybe they match the owner, maybe they don't, but it's just a ton of data. You have others that say, hey, here's, you paid us money and here's 4 phone numbers to call. And they don't deliver a lot of phone numbers, but they say we're like 70-80% sure that this is the right property owner. Well, with what we've been able to do is we can combine both those processes. We can give you the most data possible at the highest accuracy rate possible, so that you both get, you get plenty of phone numbers to call every day, and our accuracy rate has gone to this 1 to 10 or 1 to 6 connection to property owners with the way that we're able to curate data.
Either or, like 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 6 is still better than the average that you said, which is 1 out of 15.
That's right.
So that's crazy. Even if we're like 1 out of 8, like let's put that in the middle. 1 out of 8, dude. That's 50% better. I mean, double 100 if you're looking at it from the bottom up.
Yep.
But wow, that's a big difference in me calling and feeling more comfortable when people are actually picking up versus not. So Robert says he's got to go to an appointment. Robert, thank you so much. This is recorded. It'll be on our YouTube channel for LabCoatAgents. And if you get a chance, if you're not part of RedX, sign up. So thanks for that. Dude, Robert, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
As you were doing this study, what's something else that stood out? Because I love the numbers, because if you follow the numbers, they tell you the story that you want, right? Like I went from 1 listing equals 3 listing appointments equals 30 contacts, 450 dials. That's 11 hours on average, and we're dialing 40 dials an hour. That's like, for me, that's how I summarized it. But what else did you discover?
Yeah, I think something that if you've been prospecting, you know, but like I said, I jumped on and did several hundred just because I wanted to get some of the insight myself. And so every phone number we called at least 3 times before we decided that it
Oh,
and what I found out is, of course, it goes down every time but we still connected with people on that 3rd time. And so if you're burning through your list but not going back through them maybe the next day or however your own routine works, then you're missing out on some people because
were you immediately dialing back, or did you give it a day or two?
Yep, we do it a different day and different time. But of course, our highest connection rate is on the first dial. But as we did it, guess what? Still up to 3 dials, you find people. And the other one is when you're making that many phone calls, and I think this is the main thing I'd love everybody to figure out, because maybe your numbers aren't exactly the same as our averages, but it's always math. It always is. There is somebody out there when you're calling expireds, FSBOs, even if you're doing circle prospecting, just listed, just sold with geo leads, someone is in need of your service. And it's not always the next person that you call. It's not always the next 10 people you call. But because the math always works, if you keep dialing, you will find that person. And then you'll get a listing, and then you'll get a closing. And so it's always math. And that can really help in mindset. The stress was off me. I wasn't trying to get a closing when I was making phone calls, but I still felt it. Dial, and trying to get the data and trying to get property owners. And yeah, those dials, your mindset can wane as you're getting no's, as you're not connecting, but the math always works. And so you plug in your numbers and go to work.
Interesting. You said something that I feel when I'm calling. I still get jitters. That's interesting. I don't know anybody that does it. And I've been calling since I was 14, man.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. One thing that and then I'll answer your question, Simon. I see it. One thing that I've noticed is that once I started shifting my reason for calling in my head, I became a lot more comfortable, right? So as I got more confident in this business, right, that hold on there, that really helped me out a lot, because now, number one, I felt like I could actually help them, but number two, I wasn't necessarily going for the listing appointment, right? I was going for the connection first, and then seeing if there was an opportunity for the listing appointment, because I think we go to the listing appointment too fast in some cases, and people can feel that, right? So yeah. I think that, look, if it's working for you, awesome, but that's what worked for me, Robert. Let me go to Simon. Simon had a great question here. He's saying, what times are the best times to get a higher rate of people answering the phone?
Yeah, we've done some of our own research on that. Again, I think you build your own routines and you can find these. So expireds, we always recommend, if expired is part of your lead stack, that you did that, excuse me, first thing in the morning. That is a hot lead, and other people want that lead, and other people want to talk to that property owner. And so an expired and a FSBO would be similar. that earlier in the day is better for that. But once you go from there, that depends on your own habits. I mean, I've worked with people that prospect in the morning, then they go and do office work or appointments, then they eat lunch and prospect at lunch, then office work, appointments, and then they prospect again at the end of the day, because they just love they believe it or not, there are people that love prospecting. And
I
so
don't know
that's
those people, Robert. I don't know those people, damn it. I still feel jitters, man.
but yeah, so and you know, you've got your just listed, just solds that probably tend to the afternoon, and so there's some of those general ideas, but I also think your own habits and routines need to build around that. But yeah, in general, expires and FSBOs in the morning, just listed, just sold, circle prospecting afternoon.
You know what I have noticed though, from calling, I agree, expired morning for sure. Like if you can narrow it down to 30 minutes, damn, that's good.
Yeah.
For sale by owners, we found that because they're selling it on their own and you get them in that first week-ish, they'll pick up the phone almost any time.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not until you get them like third, fourth week in, they're like not picking it up anymore because they know what's up. Right. So that's interesting. And then the other part is, Simon, depending on where you're calling. So I learned this from door knocking, and then I noticed it in calling. I was noticing when I was door knocking neighborhoods that had newer families, right, that were just building a family, they weren't typically home during the morning part. But when I went over to an older community that had 55 or older, they were home in the mornings, right? And then when I went into luxury, it just varied, but mostly everybody was home and they were working, and either or somebody else that wasn't the owner would open up the door anyway. So it just depends where you're calling. So I would do a little bit of research and say, well, what type of people, demographic, right? Families, non-families, single, younger, older, who lives here? And then go from there.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, man. We put up the link there. Anybody have any questions? Let us know. Hold on. Let's see. Jake says Santa Barbara picks up anytime. Thanks, Jake. Jake was actually calling right next to me, so he knows actually. Maurice, where is the best place to track your numbers? I know coaching companies have tracking systems, and like the Mike Ferry organization, I have seen different forms that you can track on paper, but you know, the cool thing about RedX is that it's tracking for you as you're calling. So it gives you a report right as soon as you're done.
That's right.
So you're done. You don't have to think.
Yeah, and we call it our pulse data. So as you're making dials, it's telling you how long you've been on, how many dials you're making, and then if you're using our dispositions, it tells you when you're making contacts and what kind of contacts, and can keep all that data for you historically. And you know what? But one of my favorite ways to keep track is a guy I know. He has 5 pennies sitting on his desk, and as soon as he makes a contact, he moves a penny over. And then he calls him, and then he moves another penny over, and he's just going for 5 contacts, and he moves pennies over. So I think I of course I love the pulse data that's in our Vortex system there for RedX, and you get all your historical data. But it could be as simple as moving pennies over.
Dude, you just gave me an idea. What if we do that? What if we gamify it and do the same thing, but with your Amazon purchases? So, like, Robert, you're calling, you talk to somebody, and then you move one thing over into the cart. Now, and then whenever, let's say you contacted 6 people and then you get a listing appointment, then you hit, all right, send it to my house. And now you're committed. You better be closing.
I like this. You might want to start with low budget items, and then as you get better, you can move up. Yeah, I like this.
That's so good. Robert, thanks for being on, man. I appreciate
thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're feeling better, bro.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.